And you've just heard In the Midden by Rudi Zygadlo from the new album Doggerland. I'm delighted now to be joined by Rudi. Hello, Rudi.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
So first of all, what can you tell us about Doggerland?
Yes, it's my new album. And I need to think about this because every time I'm prompted to explain it, like I come at it at a sort of new angle. For some reason, I really hate repeating myself, even if it's like only happened like twice. I feel like I have to come up with something novel to say each time. But I guess then the sort of titular inspiration is like the piece of land that used to connect Britain to Europe that was submerged after the last ice age, and probably the kind of the genesis of the whole thing probably happened around Brexit negotiations. So there's a kind of potency about that idea, and then also the kind of environmental angle or associations of that stuff, and then quite a lot of the tracks on the album kind of deal with environmental and kind of topical things like that, and COP26 and Glasgow and kind of like vaguely apocalyptic stuff that is kind of dealt with in a fairly merry way. And I guess sonically it's eccentric pop music for the most part, and it's I guess it's mostly autobiographical, and it's kind of there's some love songs in there, I think, and there's lots of good. I kind of like after all my previous work being less kind of guitar driven, and that being my original instrument, I kind of like just went full throttle on guitar stuff, and maybe like in hindsight, there's maybe one too many guitar solos on the album, but I'm not yet regretful of that. And I kind of sort of thought, I got to a sort of dangerous place of thinking, oh, the song's not finished yet because I haven't put a guitar solo in there. And I think I've probably sort of exercised that thirst.
It's interesting. I knew the name Doggerland from the shipping forecast. I didn't realise that's what the piece of land was.
Yeah, because this Dogger Fisher always crops up on the shipping forecast, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah.
I can't remember what that means, to be honest.
No.
I mean, shipping forecast is just like instant absurd poetry, isn't it? Like
it absolutely is, and it's also a really good thing if you're looking to get to sleep. You stick that on and it kind of lulls you in, and next thing you know, it's the morning.
Yeah, it lulls you in because you don't know, unless you're versed in the language, you don't really know what they're saying because you can't really engage, but it's kind of like soporific. Yeah.
And you say that the album's kind of been 6 years roughly in the making, and is that right? Is that?
I would say so.
Yeah, and as you've kind of hinted at, what a 6 years it's been globally. I mean, just Binfar doesn't even begin to touch it. Do the songs, well, you said that the songs in the album, or some of the songs in the album, respond to things that have been going on, but does that mean that you were changing them as the world continued to change, to put it politely?
That is true. I mean, I wouldn't say it was as calculated as that. Like, I was like updating songs with like news headlines or anything, but there is a couple of instances of tunes that were maybe like, say, 5 years old, and maybe like I wasn't really that happy with the lyrics anyway, and I sort of like updated them. So I think there's a few instances of that. So like as much as some of the tunes may be sort of like 6 years old, essentially, most of them have been updated more recently. Like the last track there's quite a recent spin on that, and Helmet On, I think I updated quite a lot. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's generally the vibe. But like nothing's really specific, you know, like apart from maybe somewhere in Glasgow, which has like got a very much a date attached to it as COP26, which I was kind of in and around. I think they're vague enough not to be too outdated, if you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I never thought that they were outdated. It was just the pace of change that was going on. I can imagine
Right.
was, you know,
Totally.
where did this pandemic come from? Or, you know, how the hell did we have Boris Johnson as a prime minister or something like that, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that is right. If anything, like maybe when I started it, not that it was totally all preconceived, but when I was like starting those tunes, I probably thought I was being, if not on the button, then like, or if not forward thinking, then at least on the pulse. And now it's like it's almost like, yeah, we've gone through so much, like as you say, and things just change at such a crazy pace. Like I've already started writing songs about AI in a kind of like, or I had a couple of months ago, and like already it seems like sort of a hackneyed idea, you know? So that's the next kind of
So you're writing songs about AI rather than with AI, which I don't understand what that means, but McCartney's doing it, so
Oh, I saw that. Is that song being released?
I don't know if it's been released. I don't know, but it features John Lennon on it, I think,
Right.
some way. I don't know.
It's not sort of billed as the last Beatles tune.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I've actually gotten a version. Like I've never touched Chat GPT, and I get like quite triggered by the news because I work on a daily podcast, and all of the episodes about AI I find particularly bleak. Like honestly, I just go into total catastrophizing dread at the rate that's changing, and where are we going to be in 2 years, let alone already with fucking AI?
Yeah, it's interesting going back to, you know, you kind of mentioned that Brexit was kind of the starting point, because it does seem to me that was almost like a national sliding doors moment. I can remember I was working at the time and everyone in the office, oh, well, it's never going to go through. Don't worry about it. Oh, we're fine. And waking up the next day and suddenly going, what? And since then, it's like we could have gone this way and we went that way. And
yeah, well, there was that sequence of like bad election results in a short period of time as well. I mean, I don't know where you stand on independence, but like it was like that.
Yeah.
You go through, the Tories got back in, Brexit happened, Trump happened in like quite a small window.
Yeah.
If all of those results kind of went in the way that you hadn't hoped, then it was like there's a lot to get kind of, I don't know,
Somewhere in an alternative universe, there's a completely different.
Right, exactly. I mean, the thing about Brexit is that like it's not like I'm absolutely across the board against every aspect about it. It's just that everyone leading, you know, in charge of every part of that, it stands for something that I despise. Yeah. Like it's not like and you know, I'm not pro-Brexit at all. Like it's not necessarily politically such a bad thing. It's just that in of itself, you know what I mean? It's just that everyone who's in control is like terrible.
It became a kind of shorthand, I think.
Yeah.
You mentioned the song Somewhere in Glasgow, which we're going to hear after we've stopped talking. Could you maybe go into that a bit more? Because as you say, that is a specific song.
Yeah, that's quite specific. Although it's not, the thrust of the song is like, I don't know if it's really saying anything. It's just like painting a picture of probably not a very vivid picture because it's a little bit kind of fragmented, but it's just about being in Glasgow during COP and, you know, the sort of odd things that were happening, like the sort of really alien things that were happening in Glasgow at that point. It's almost like under the skin, you know, it's like Scarlett Johansson in Glasgow as an alien, and like Scarlett Johansson walking around Glasgow is almost as weird as an alien walking around Glasgow. That's why the metaphor is so like vivid, but like just having like John Kelly and Leonardo DiCaprio sort of popping up and the kind of circus around all this stuff, and like, I mean, obviously the zeal and the sort of hope around that event is like good, and it's like, you know, that it's nice to have festivity around hope, but the reality of like, you know, you read two lines underneath the headline, it's just like most of the delegates there represent fossil fuel industries. Most like how much carbon, you know, emissions are happening around that, and how much, I don't know. It's just like, it's fun to kind of mock it a bit as much as it stands for something good. What am I saying? It's all sort of mumbo jumbo. I also I rented out my flat to an NGO,
Right.
which was total opportunistic capitalism on my part. But like everyone was doing that. I was getting $2,000 for like 5 days of someone coming to stay at my flat, and that's easy money. And I felt kind of guilty about it. And my dad was like, he was like, this is the problem with the planet, and you're making an opportunity out of something that should not be capitalized on. And like that is exactly what fossil fuel representatives at COP are. Like, it's like COP co-opting, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's right, but I did it anyway.
I think
Sounds like I need the money, thanks.
But I think the term circus, that's right. That's kind of what it seemed to me, is that it would arrive at your town, it would do its thing, and then it'll move on to the next town, and you know, and folk will feel the same way. But all you're left is, you know, weren't the clowns great? So I was reading the press release before we came to talk, and you've got this image of you in a bath with a virtual reality headset, which kind of sounds like sensory deprivation. You know, I was thinking about what's it called? It's a great film. Can't remember what it's called now, but he gets sent to sensory deprivation tanks and all that kind of thing. Is that what you kind of want the album to do? Almost to kind of take us away from what's going on, and you know, less a soundtrack, more a musical distraction.
Divertimento in yeah, I do. Again, like lots of these things are not calculated, but maybe just like, if that's what one's personality is like. I think, yeah, I mean that image is like almost like it's a sort of collation of different sort of like motifs that I've like used. Like I've always had these, or for quite a long time, I've had like baths involved in my music. Like my previous artist project called Luli had a sort of bath thing going on. We shot a music. Actually, I don't know if it made the cut in the music video, but I was in bath with a dog, and which was like overflowing with like red ribbons. And I don't know if it made the cut in the end, but I from that point on, I was just like, I quite like this Bath vibe. And so bringing that forward, the album was kind of always about water in the beginning. Like I was just thinking about water all the time. It's this like cleansing force, a drowning force, kind of deluge and end of world flood stuff. And then it's kind of, you know, this Heraclitus saying no man steps into the same river twice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of thinking about flux and nothing ever staying the same. Like the man has changed since the last time he steps into the river. The river has moved on since last time it stepped into it. So I think there's like a bunch of watery ideas in my head, and then like juxtaposing that with like a VR headset. Obviously, that's like the classic image of like never have a radio next to the bath.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, yeah.
Don't chuck your toaster into the bath, and then like just being just like the escapism of a VR headset whilst you know, being in an overflowing bath resonated for kind of, I don't know, maybe not so obvious reasons, but like I don't know, I haven't been thinking about it so much recently, but I think we're like as a species moving into a more virtual existence, and that's obvious by everyone spending most of their days looking at a screen, if not like putting one on their head. Like that's only going to get more so, I think.
Yeah.
Quite a frightening idea. Like depend whether you're a Luddite or not. It's just like we are changing, and that's where we seem to be going.
You've just reminded me recently there was something on TV about the new Apple headset, and you choose things with your eye. You looked at it or something.
Right. What sort of tracks your eye movements.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. Sometimes I think I maybe dreamt these things.
Yeah. I mean, are you like a technophile? Do you like get new gadgets, or you like?
No, not really. I find a gadget that I like, and I kind of tend to stick with it.
Yeah.
By necessity, I'll then maybe, you know, have to, you know, the laptop will break.
Compatibility.
Yeah, but no, I don't go out seeking new gadgets at all. I've never had a virtual headset or anything such as that. And yeah, I think if you're listening to this wearing it in the bath is probably a bad idea. So are you going to take these songs live, or the idea? Are you going to take them on the road, as they say?
I am. There'll be a tour certainly in November, and probably little one-offs before then. And so that's with a band comprised of fellow Glaswegians, Rudi Hae, who runs the GLAD and is involved in various projects like Leaf, and Alex Rex and Josh. Can you help me out? Josh Thorpe.
Oh, of course, Josh. Yes.
And yeah, and Andrew Patty, who works with BMX Bandits, and C. Duncan, I think he plays with as well.
Yeah.
And then my drummer is a Danish fella called Jonas, who actually played with the successor band to Amazing Snakeheads, which were called And Yet It Moves, I think.
Right, okay.
You hear that stuff?
Amazing Snakeheads, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's when they moved to Berlin, I think.
Right.
Anyway, I've played with him for 12 years or something. So like in previous sort of band incarnations. So it's and I've known Andrew and Rory for 15 years. More.
Yeah.
I played with, do you remember a band called the Velcro Quartet in around 2006?
Don't know. I must have missed them.
Well, I played, that was fronted by my friend Joe Roger, but Andrew and I played in that as well. So that's a kind of home from home experience.
That's quite a band. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a great show. I mean it's theatrical, and all those guys are like phenomenal musicians as instrument players, like far superior to me. So it's like nice to have that solid backing.
Somebody just recently said the trick is to surround yourself with great musicians, and then you can go and do anything you like.
Right, exactly. Get them to do anything. And
that's going to be,
I prance about.
And as you say, there's a theatrical element to it as well. So people quite a show.
Yeah, it's fun. I do play guitar, but only maybe 25% of the time. And yeah, it's good. It's good. There's a little bit of like audience immersion there, and yeah, a little bit of question and answer action. I don't know what the rock stars say about this stuff, but that's what I call it.
Excellent. Expect the unexpected, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Rudi, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
And this is Rudi Zygadlo and Somewhere in Glasgow.